Of course, you can play classic console games with joystick and buttons on your home arcade, such as I do with my Retro-Cade Arcade 1 PC, but did you know you can also use the Nintendo Switch online exclusive classic controllers for an even more authentic controller experience if that's what you're looking for? Well, I purchased and tested out the Super Nintendo Entertainment System controller, as well as the Nintendo 64 controller, and I'm going to show you what I did to get these controllers working with my Retro-Cade Arcade 1 PC and what other classic controllers are available. So sit back and enjoy. First off, I want to give a big shout out to Stan from the Arcade 1 Facebook group for showing off his amazing controller collection, which inspired me to grab a couple of these controllers and test them out myself. Thanks, Stan, I appreciate it. Next, head on over to the nintendo.com/us/store and click on the store exclusive tab, and then select the Nintendo Switch Online tab. These offers are only available to those who have an active Nintendo Switch Online membership. If you want to learn more about the online membership, you can click on this Learn More tab. There's a Nintendo GameCube controller releasing on June 5th for the Nintendo Switch 2, so I'm going to order that to see if that's going to be compatible with the Retro-Cade Arcade 1 PC as well. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and ring that notification bell to be alerted for when that video goes live. I did purchase the Nintendo 64 controller for $49.99, which is a lot, but I do like the idea of being able to play some of these classic N64 games with a wireless authentic controller. I also purchased the Super Nintendo controller for $29.99, but I do wish there was a 2-pack for $49.99, as there's a lot of great 2-player Super Nintendo games. There's also 2 other classic controllers you can get, a pair of Nintendo Entertainment System controllers, as well as a Sega Genesis control pad. Both of these I plan on getting, but I wanted to test out a few first, just in case they didn't work. These Nintendo Online controllers arrived in a few days and did come with some USB charging cables that do seem to work for charging the controllers when plugged into the USB ports on the Retro-Cade or Arcade 1 PC. However, I couldn't get them to connect properly to play the games, which is why I ordered some of these 8BitDo USB wireless adapter 2s off of eBay. I got one for each controller, and you're able to pair these with your wireless controllers with this pair button. Next, plug in your 8BitDo USB wireless adapter 2 into a USB port on the arcade PC. You can then press and hold the pair button on the USB, and then press and hold the pair button on your controller. The green button will flash while it's trying to pair and connect to the USB. The green button will stay solid once it's paired. You should also hear a Windows chime indicating it's been paired and connected successfully. If it doesn't pair, try unplugging the USB, turning off the controller, and trying it again. You can also try turning on the controller first and then pressing the pair button on the USB and see if that works better for you. Stan uses a powered USB hub with an on-off switch, so you can turn it on when you're using the controllers and turn it off so it doesn't conflict with anything else when you're not using them. Luckily for me, the Retro-Cade Elite pedestal came with a powered USB hub, so I just plugged in the 8BitDo USB adapter 2 and turned it on with the switch to activate it, and the Super Nintendo controller stayed paired nicely. I'm going to test out the Super Nintendo controller to see if it works with the games and if all the buttons are mapped correctly or if I have to adjust those. Contra 3: The Alien Wars on Super Nintendo is one of my favorite games, so let's try that one out. The start button pauses the game and also enters the game. The D-pad moves your character around, down ducks, the B button jumps, while the Y button fires your weapon. If you collect 2 different weapons, you can swap between them with the X button. The A button is used for your aura bomb, and the L and R buttons rotate your character in the overhead levels, with the R button also functioning as a stationary aiming mode in the side-scrolling levels. Select will show your map in the overhead levels as well. Those are the main controls, and I had no issues while playing this game. I'll finish out the level and move on to swapping the Super Nintendo controller with the arcade control panel and how that works. I thought Contra 3 The Alien Wars played great with the Nintendo Switch Online Super Nintendo controller on my Retro-Cade Arcade 1 PC. Next up, I'm going to play Battletoads and Battle Maniacs on Super Nintendo and show you how easy you can just swap between the Nintendo Switch Online Super Nintendo controller and the Retro-Cade Arcade 1 control panel joystick and button setup. I'm going to do this with a picture-in-picture setup. In the lower right-hand corner, you can see I'm using the Nintendo Switch Online Super Nintendo controller to beat up these enemies. Now I'm gonna set that down, grab the joystick and rotate it, push the buttons on the control panel, and now I'm playing on my Retro-Cade Arcade 1, just like that. Since the joystick and buttons are already mapped for Super Nintendo on the Retro-Cade Arcade 1 PC, you do not need to do anything special to make this work. You just plug in your Nintendo Switch Online Super Nintendo controller with your 8BitDo USB adapter, and you can utilize that, or you can utilize the joystick and buttons. It's up to you. I have only tested one controller, and the green LED light lights up one dot. If you do get a second controller and pair it, it should light up 2 dots for player 2. Just make sure it connects to the correct player is lit up. If it accidentally registers as player 2 and you're wanting it to be player 1, turn it off and resync it. Next up, I tested out the N64 controller, and while some of the buttons did work out of the box, it wasn't mapped correctly to work with RetroArch. So with Carlos's help, we created a proper N64 controller mapping config file. Carlos can provide this file to you, or if you want to edit yourself, go to this PC, Arcade D drive, Arcade, Emulators, RetroArch, Config. And make sure you make a copy of the Nintendo 64.cfg file by right-clicking and select copy, and then select paste, and then label it with an _BAK. That's your backup copy in case you mess anything up. Once you make the backup copy, now you can right-click on the actual Nintendo 64.cfg file and select Edit with Notepad++. This will open up the RetroArch config file for Nintendo 64. You will next scroll down to line 226, which is where player 1 is, and pay close attention to what changes I have listed here. The main lines that you're going to change are the input _ player 1 _ and then whatever button it is _BTN equals, and you're going to change that number in the quotation marks. Scroll down and make sure everything under player 1 matches what I have, all the way down to line 300. Once done, save and then exit. If it doesn't work or you mess it up, delete this file and you can start over since you made a backup copy. I haven't tested additional N64 controllers like this, but in theory, you can do the same for players 2, 3, and 4 if you have that many controllers. But again, make sure you start with a backup copy just in case. I'm going to test out the N64 controller on WWF No Mercy since it utilizes quite a few of the buttons and inputs. The D-pad moves the character while the joystick makes your character taunt depending on which direction you press. The B button strikes, the A button grapples, the up C button tags in your tag team partner in a tag match, the right C button changes your focus to different opponents, the down C button is the run button, the left C button flips your opponent around, the L button ducks, the R button guards, and there are plenty of other combinations for those buttons as well as contextual situations, such as going inside and outside of the ring if you're near the ropes, picking up weapons, and even pinning your opponents if they're laying on the ground. Once you have your special gauge filled up, you typically perform a strong grapple and then flip the joystick. Let's see if I can take down The Rock as Stone Cold Steve Austin with the Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller. And a quick side note before we get this match started, I appreciate all the efforts from the folks at the Bezel Project who make these amazing side bezel art for a lot of these consoles, but they did have Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose on the WWF No Mercy bezels, which isn't accurate since those characters aren't in this game, so I did edit their side bezels to feature characters from the official box art to make it a little bit more authentic. Here we go. Fight! I'm gonna skip ahead into the match so you can see a run-in from another opponent and how I utilize the right C button to change focus on the different wrestlers. Stone Cold Steve Austin gets the victory over The Rock, even with the interference from Triple H. And outside of me being a little out of practice playing my No Mercy, the controls seem to work great on this Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch online controller. Keep in mind you do need a Nintendo account with a paid Nintendo Switch online membership in order to purchase these controllers. Overall, I thought they worked great. It would sometimes disconnect or sync with the wrong player, but turning the controller on and off or restarting the PC always fixed it for me. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of these controllers. Are you interested in playing them with your arcade? If you enjoyed the video, give the video a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell to stay up to date on all my future content, including my upcoming Retro-Cade Elite Pedestal review. Thank you for all of your support, and remember, we're in the endgame now.